Brexit, it's extraordinary because this is what everybody's been talking about, isn't it? So you got 52% of the British population voted to leave the European Union. If you're in the UK, which way would you have voted around the panel?
I personally think I would have voted to remain.
Remain, Andrew?
Yeah, I would have remained.
What about you?
Remain, definitely.
All remains.
Yeah.
All remains. Is this a backlash against globalisation? Is this a backlash about the fact that a lot of people in the country aren't doing very well at all? You go to some of the regions and they've suffered. The communities are devastated, no jobs. And that's why people said go. Carmel.
Yeah, it's a backlash against elitism, and the fact is that the system isn't working for so many, and that's not just in the UK. I think we've got to be aware of the fact that that's happening here as well. It's the insecurity of work, it's the issues around housing affordability. All of those things have led us to this result with the referendum.
What
in the
about you,
UK.
Andrew? I mean, there was a fascinating piece on The Guardian, a person who walked from Liverpool to London. He said it was no surprise to him when he saw some of those communities that were devastated, and that's why people exited. What do you reckon?
I think there was an element of that, but also if you look at the voting stats, actually the 18 to 25-year-olds voted 75% to stay in the union, which I found fascinating, which actually when you look at it, if you look at it another way, it was mainly the older people who were actually wanting to exit, other than those living in London.
What about
So it was actually amazing that the younger generation wanted to stay in.
Voted. I think that's the worry too. So few of the young people voted.
Eugenie, what about this? You'd often hear the phrase, we want our country back. Would that same phrase happen in Aotearoa? We want our country back.
I think Carmel's right. We can't afford to be complacent here. If you're in precarious work, you can't access good health services, you haven't got a secure home, you'll be feeling alienated and envious, and then we need the government to actually address those basic social issues so that people feel engaged.
So why would you have chosen Remain?
Because in the UK, a lot of their environmental legislation is based on the EU, and so it's also an inclusive Europe where we're working for everybody rather than just isolated nationalism.
All right, okay. Ali's got a guest.
Jonathan Sinclair, you're British High Commissioner here in Wellington. Tell me about what kind of week it's been at work.
It's been busy. I've been out and about in town, talking to media, seeing politicians, and getting the message out that actually between the UK and New Zealand, nothing changes.
That was delivered note perfect, and you even lost the football as well, and you've still got a smile on your face.
That's true, but I'm the High Commissioner for the whole of the UK, so I'm cheering on Wales now.
It's always good to have options. But for how long? Who knows? How's this going to affect New Zealanders?
Look, as I said, not much. In terms of things that people have been interested in this week, it's about travel in particular. For young people, nothing changes. For older Kiwis too. If you want to come to the UK, good deals right now as well. But you don't need a visa if you want to come for a holiday. And for those on their OE, we've got the Youth Mobility Scheme. And we've got 12,000 places. But right now, only 4,000 of them are being taken up. So a message to Kiwis is keep coming.
Someone just yelled, it's too cold. Can you allay their concerns about that?
Well, actually, I was in the UK 2 weeks ago and it was raining.
Not as successful as your previous answers. The way trade works is being renegotiated on the hoop right now. What do you think we're going to see? Is this a refashioning of the way things are being done?
Well, two things here. One, there's an EU-New Zealand free trade agreement going on. We're remaining part of the EU for at least 2 years, and while we are there, we'll continue to fight for a strong New Zealand-EU free trade agreement. And then we'll have to see what happens between us. There are already sounds coming out of government from politicians across the piece that it would be a good thing to do. We're hearing that, and we're looking forward to working with you in due course.
Do you still like our sheep?
I like your lamb chops.
Good one. Thank you very much. Jonathan Sinclair, British High Commissioner to Wellington.
Good to have you on the show, Jonathan. Just because this has been an extraordinary debate, we can't stop talking about it. Just big crowd tonight. Just if the cameras could get to the audience there, hands up those who would have voted to remain in the EU. Hands up. All right. So what about 80%? Those who would have said exit. Hands up. About 3. Ali, do you want to go to one of those people?
No, so we're going to go and find an exeter. We have an exeter. Sir, you're playing with your phone. You're just about to post something on Facebook.
I am.
What are you about to post?
Stuff.
Yeah, why would you have exited?
I think sorry, the camera's got to me. No.
No, it's all right. There's another lady over here. I shall plunge myself without fear for my personal safety towards the back. Beg your pardon.
Okay, I think it's a move towards localism and subsidiarity, and I think it's people wanting to reclaim their place-based feeling of who they are, their communities. I also think that it may be possible for the UK to negotiate certain arrangements like we have with Australia, for example. I mean, we're not one country with Australia, but we have free trade and free travel. So I think, I think the time is coming for people to reclaim their communities.
Wow.
So
okay.
it's not the doom and gloom scenario that you might have read from the TV on the first day.
Look, I understand for young people who have felt, if you're a young British person, you feel you've got more in common with a young Dutch person or a young German, and I understand that. For them, it's absolutely gutting. And I do understand for older people that it's some sort of, looking to the past. But I actually think that we've got to think about a new future for developed economies, and ones where we're not so kind of like depressed teenagers looking at, iPhones in their bedrooms.
Thank you very much.
Interesting. About that, reclaim, I mean, this might come back in election year. We want our country back, hashtag Aotearoa.
Yeah.
What do you reckon about that? It might really come back to bite you on the arse, this whole populism.
Yeah.
What do you reckon, Carmel?
Yeah, I mean, she mentioned localism, and I guess when people are feeling a sense of insecurity, then they do become very insular, and they do get concerned about things like immigration and other things, And so
manufacturing, you go to the regions, manufacturing has gone offshore.
And that's why we've got to address the insecurities that people are feeling.
We want our country back. Could this be an issue in the election?
Oh, there's certainly some people and some parties that will push this very hard.
Winston?
That's a pretty good guess. But for a lot of thinking New Zealanders, they'll have a different view on this. And New Zealand's a fantastic place. We're going to talk about how we've just been ranked the fourth best.
So not cut back on immigration?
Well, immigration, actually, if you look at it, most of the immigration that we've got quite high levels at the moment, obviously, but most of that is New Zealanders returning from overseas, a substantial proportion of that. And then the other bit is students coming out to New Zealand to study.
All right. Okay, what about you, Janie? We want our country back. Might this be an issue? You've seen it spread across far left, far right countries. Many countries in Europe have that. You've seen a bit of it, haven't you, in the US with Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump. What about next year?
Well, I think with the reaction to the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and people don't want global corporations dictating New Zealand policy, and under this government that's what we're getting. Yeah. And so there is that element, but it's also, we need to strengthen our democracy here, and we can do that by tackling inequality. The fact that 10% of New Zealanders own 60% of the wealth creates the conditions for populism to thrive.
All right.